Over the weekend in Nevada, we had 58 supporters of Bernie Sanders who were not allowed to go in and vote in the Nevada State Convention. That made all the difference. Hillary Clinton winds up winning instead of Bernie Sanders. Now, there's only 12 delegates at stake, but she wins 7-5 instead of him winning 7-5. And they say, well, no, I'm sorry, you weren't registered as Democrats before the May 1st deadline. You don't have the proper paperwork. You don't have the proper registration. Now, is that possible? Yes, it's possible that out of 1,600 people that showed up, 58 didn't have the proper paperwork. Totally possible. Now, Hillary Clinton had about 1,600 people show up as well. They only disqualified 8 instead of 58 on her side. I guess that's also possible, but that discrepancy is slightly curious. Okay, fine. But if this is the only place that it happened, I would honestly tell you guys, hey, look, the overall convention was a mess, and I just pointed out, that all the different problems with it, but you can't assume that this is all part of a conspiracy where the Hillary Clinton people are going all across the country and making sure that Bernie Sanders gets cheated in little ways. Now, I still don't want you to make that assumption, and it's got to be investigated. But there are a great number of instances now where you go, okay. Now, I'll explain that because that might also be explainable. But first, let me give you a report from Democratic Underground. Now, when I say it's a report, it's actually one person with the unfortunate title of Coffee Cat. Now, I know that they probably picked that handle a long time ago, and they didn't know they were going to be in the middle of an important story about the elections. But I want to have you hear from that person about their experience in Iowa, because it might be relevant here to what we're seeing across the country. They write in, I'm a Bernie delegate from Iowa. I participated in our county convention, and I was gearing up to participate as a Bernie delegate in our district convention, which was held 2 weeks ago. Now, 3 days before the district convention, I get a phone call from a Bernie Sanders staff member. They were wondering why I was registered as a Republican in the state of Iowa. Now, he explains, wait a minute, I'm not even remotely a Republican. I've never been registered as a Republican. So it goes on to explain. I was informed 3 days before our district convention that if I showed up at our convention as a registered Republican, that the Hillary people could challenge my credentials, strip me of my credentials, then I would be disallowed for participating or voting. And to be absolutely clear, he or she clarifies, fact, sometime between February 1st and May 1st, my voter registration switched from Democrat to Republican. And he explains, again, he or she explains, no, I never voted as a Republican. I never registered as a Republican. I definitely am registered as a Democrat and have been for years and years and years. In fact, I'm a Bernie delegate from this state. What in the world's going on? And he concludes by saying, I just learned that in Nevada, the 64 Bernie's delegates were stripped of their credentials. A Hillary supporter on Democratic Underground posted the official reason, because they weren't registered as Democratic voters by May 1st, 2016. They're right about that. That was the official reason given. And so they're basically pointing out, look, this happened in Iowa. Now it looks like it happened in Nevada. We know all the people who were purged from the voting rolls in Brooklyn and other places in New York. We know the governor of Rhode Island decided, oh, was this an interesting election? I don't think so. I'm going to close 2/3 of the voting booths across the state because it looks like Bernie Sanders is slated to win. And he wound up winning anyway, but maybe by a less margin. And we know the number of voting booths that have been restricted in Arizona and Wisconsin as well. So, look, if someone is actually actively switching people's registration to give Hillary Clinton an advantage, well, that's a pretty serious violation. So they should look into that in New York, where they are, in Iowa, in Nevada, wherever it might have happened, okay? Is it going to make an enormous difference overall in the race? Probably not. Does that mean you should let him get away with it? Hell no, right? Now, one possible explanation that doesn't involve anybody doing anything wrong is, well, if you're Bernie Sanders supporters, and right now Bernie is trailing, and by the way, fairly significantly as this race is, running out of time, well, you see more of the injustices. If your side is winning, maybe there's a whole bunch of those injustices, but who cares? I'm winning by 280 some odd delegates, so I'm going to win. I don't have time to chase down an injustice that happened against me in Hawaii or Washington or wherever it happened. So that's a plausible explanation. But all these people who are legitimately very angry about what happened to them, it's not the right move is not for all those states to go, whatever, I don't care, I don't care. No, the right move is you investigate and find out if it's true or not true. And if it's not true, that's great, because then it'll give us faith back in our democratic system. But you need to do some sort of investigation to figure that out, especially in Nevada, where it made a big difference. It made a difference between Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders winning. So, look, and the bottom line is, what do I think? Again, I don't know. You need to do the investigation. But I do know that power is more likely to favor itself. Okay, I'm not saying anything radical there. That's fairly obvious to everyone, right? So if almost everybody running these elections are Hillary Clinton surrogates, and overall, that's almost uniformly the case. Now, Bernie Sanders has some people in the Democratic Party supporting him, some superdelegates, but they are a tiny, tiny minority. The Democratic Party machine is clearly on Hillary Clinton's side. So it is certainly not implausible, to say the least, that that machine would then tweak the rules, and it depends on your definition of tweak, wherever they could to make sure that their candidate has the advantage. And then go, if you had played ball with power, then you would have power and you would get these advantages. But you want to change this system? Well, that's a no-go. We're going to have all the tweaks go against you. I find that to be a plausible theory, but you've got to look into it and find out if that's real or not, right? And then when you look at all of it together, just one last thing. Who's for change again? Now, are there any Hillary Clinton supporters really out there saying, no, Hillary Clinton would bring you bigger change? And that's why the entire power establishment is on her side? Because the people who got into power through this system don't like this system and can't wait to change it? Or do they love the status quo? And hence, if there's going to be any tweaks, is it going to be against the guy who's saying, I'm going to bring you real change and we're going to upset the status quo? It's not very surprising that the status quo would fight back, and we'll have to see if it was by any means necessary.